My name is Sarah. I love yard sales because you can find cool old stuff for cheap. One sunny Saturday, I rode my bike to a yard sale a few streets away. There were tables full of toys, clothes, and dishes. Under a big tree, I saw a shiny music box. It was small, painted with red roses, and had a tiny ballerina inside. When I turned the key, it played a soft, tinkly song. It was pretty, but something about it made my stomach feel funny. The lady selling it, Mrs. Gray, smiled and said, "Only $5, dear." I gave her the money and took the music box home, excited to show my mom. That night, I put the music box on my dresser. After I turned off my light, I heard the song start playing by itself. The ballerina spun slowly, even though I hadn't touched the key. I sat up in bed, my heart beating fast. Maybe it's broken, I thought, and I turned it off. But an hour later, it started again, louder this time. I hid under my blanket, too scared to move. The music stopped, but I heard soft footsteps in my room. I peeked out, but no one was there. My window was locked, and my door was closed. The next night, it got worse. The music box played again, but this time, I heard a whisper, singing along with the tune. It sounded like a little girl, but the words were strange, like a language I didn't know. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it at the music box. The ballerina wasn't spinning, but her head was turned, staring right at me. I screamed and ran to my mom's room. She said I was imagining things and told me to go back to sleep, but I knew something was wrong. The third night, I decided to be brave. I sat on my bed, watching the music box. Around midnight, it started playing, and the whispers came back, louder and angrier. Then, my closet door creaked open by itself. I shone my flashlight inside and saw a shadow shaped like a girl, holding something shiny. My legs shook, but I yelled, "Leave me alone!" The music stopped and the shadow disappeared. I grabbed the music box and stuffed it in a drawer, hoping that would stop it. The next day, I went back to Mrs. Gray's house to ask about the music box. Her yard was empty, and a neighbor said she'd moved away right after the sale. I felt cold all over. That night, I heard the music again, even though the box was in the drawer. I took it outside and buried it in the backyard under some dirt. The music stopped, but I kept hearing whispers at night, like the girl was still there, looking for her music box. I told my best friend, Jake, and he helped me dig it up and smash it with a hammer. The pieces didn't play anymore, but I still feel like someone's watching me when I'm alone in my room. I don't go to yard sales anymore. Some things you buy come with more than you expect, and I don't want to bring home anything creepy again. If this creeped you out, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support matters a lot. My name is Tommy. I'm always hunting for cool stuff at yard sales. One weekend, I found one at the end of our street. There were old bikes, books, and a big wooden dollhouse that looked like a tiny mansion. It had little windows, a red roof, and tiny furniture inside. I thought it'd be perfect for my little sister, Emma. The man selling it, Mr. Carter, said it was $10. His eyes looked sad, like he didn't want to sell it. But I paid and dragged it home. I set the dollhouse in Emma's room. She loved it, playing with the tiny dolls all day. That night, I heard giggles coming from her room. I thought Emma was up, but when I checked, she was fast asleep. The giggles came from the dollhouse. I looked closer, and the tiny dolls were in different spots than where Emma left them. One doll was standing by the window, like it was looking outside. I told myself it was just my imagination and went to bed. The next night, I heard the giggles again. But now, there were whispers too, like kids talking. I crept into Emma's room. The dollhouse's windows glowed faintly, like a light was on inside, but there were no batteries or plugs. I opened the little door, and the dolls were sitting in a circle, like they were having a meeting. My hand shook as I closed it and ran back to my room. I told Emma the next morning, but she laughed and said I was being silly. A few nights later, things got scarier. I woke up to tiny footsteps running across my floor. I turned on my light, and one of the dolls from the dollhouse was on my desk. I screamed, and my mom came running. She said I must have moved it in my sleep, but I knew I didn't. The next day, I checked the dollhouse and found scratches on the walls inside, like someone was trying to get out. I called my friend Max, and we decided to take it apart. As we pulled off the roof, we found a hidden compartment with an old photo of kids playing in front of the dollhouse. They looked scared, and the date on the photo was from 30 years ago. I went back to Mr. Carter's house to ask about it, but his neighbor said he'd left town the day after the sale. That night, the whispers turned into cries, and the dollhouse shook on its own. I was so scared I threw it in the dumpster behind our house. The next morning it was back in Emma's room. I grabbed it, ran to the park, and buried it deep in the woods. Since then, the giggles stopped, but sometimes I hear tiny footsteps at night. I don't know what was in that dollhouse, but I'm never buying old toys again. Some things carry secrets that don't belong in your house. My name is Lily. I always thought that old things held memories of people who owned them before. That's why I loved yard sales so much, though I don't anymore. Looking through old things and thinking about their past owners was exciting. You could find cool stuff with interesting stories. One cool Saturday morning in October, when the leaves made a nice sound when you stepped on them, I went to a big yard sale. I saw an ad for it at the grocery store. The sale was at a very old house in town, and the house already seemed a bit spooky. The front yard was full of all kinds of things from other people. Tables covered with different kinds of dishes, boxes of old books, racks of clothes, dusty lamps with fancy shades, and even some old dolls that looked creepy because their eyes were empty. I looked around at all the used things, hoping to find something special. Then, leaning against an old wooden chair, I saw it. It was a painting, about 2 feet wide and 2 feet tall. It showed a dark forest with lots of shadows. Old, twisted trees with branches like hands reached up to a sky you could hardly see. A small, curvy path with leaves on it went from the front of the painting into a strange white fog deep in the woods. It looked spooky, but also sad and beautiful, and I really liked it. It wasn't perfectly painted, but it had a scary and interesting feeling. Ms. Harper, the woman selling things, looked pale and tired. She jumped a little when I asked about the painting. "Oh, that old thing," she said very quietly. She kept looking at the painting like she was scared of it. $3. Please, just take it. She seemed to really want to get rid of it, which was odd, but I liked how creepy and cool the painting was. I thought it would look great, in a spooky way, above my messy desk. So I gave her the money, feeling a bit worried, but also excited about my new painting. When I got home, the painting looked even bigger and scarier on my bedroom wall. The forest in it looked deeper, and the fog looked like you couldn't see through it at all. That night, the problem started. I was just about to fall asleep when I heard a soft rustling noise in my quiet room. It sounded like dry leaves blowing around. I sat up fast, my heart beating hard, and turned on my lamp. The room was quiet, and the painting wasn't moving. "It's just the old house making noises," I told myself, trying to find a normal reason for the sound. I thought I must have been dreaming. I made myself go back to sleep. The next night, the rustling noise came back, louder this time. I lay in bed, too scared to move, just listening. Then I couldn't breathe for a second. In the dim light from the hallway, I was sure the trees in the painting were moving a little. Their branches looked like a soft wind was blowing them, right there on the painting. My heart was beating very fast and hard. "It's just shadows," I whispered, and my voice was shaky. It's how the lamplight looks on it. But I started to feel a cold fear inside me. I couldn't look at it anymore. I jumped out of bed, grabbed a thick blanket from my chair, and quickly covered the painting with it. Then I got back under my blankets and pulled them up to my face. The third night was the worst. The rustling noise was there again, but now there was a new sound too. Quiet footsteps, like someone walking carefully on a path with twigs and wet dirt. My eyes flew open, and I couldn't stop myself from looking at the covered painting. My hands were shaking as I looked under the blanket. The path in the painting, it was glowing. A soft, strange light, like moonlight shining through the painted fog, lit up the curvy path. And then I saw it. A tiny, dark shape of a person, no bigger than my thumb, was walking down that path. It definitely looked like a person, but it was very small and scary. As I watched, completely frozen with fear, it stopped and slowly turned its tiny head to look right at me. I couldn't see its face clearly, but the way it stared at me, even from inside the painting, felt very real and cold. I let out a choked scream. I threw the blanket off the painting and jumped out of bed. I backed up until I bumped into the other wall. I ran to my dad's room, trying to tell him about the moving trees and the tiny man in the painting. But my words were all mixed up. Of course, he just said I was having a bad dream. He patted my head and told me to go back to bed, saying that monsters weren't real. But I knew what I had seen. The next morning the sun was shining, and I hoped it was all a nightmare. But when I dared to look at the painting, the tiny figure was gone. My relief didn't last long. I saw new, thin scratches on the wooden frame around the painting. They looked like tiny fingernail marks, as if something small had tried hard to climb out of the picture. A shiver went down my spine. I immediately called my best friend, Sophie. I told her everything, and even though she sounded a bit doubtful, she agreed to help. We spent hours on her computer, typing in things like creepy forest painting and haunted art. Finally, we found an old, almost forgotten local news story. It was about a painter from many years ago who was known for making very spooky forest paintings, just like mine. The article said he disappeared one day and was never seen again. There were rumors that his spirit, or something evil he painted, got trapped in his work. People said his paintings were cursed and could trap things, or that something spooky lived inside them. Learning that made me even more scared. That night, the sounds were worse than ever. The footsteps from the painting were louder, clearer, like someone was walking heavily on the painted path. And then I heard it, a soft, chilling whisper, seeming to come right from the canvas, saying my name, Lily, Lily. My blood ran cold. I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed the painting off the wall, my hands shaking so much I almost dropped it. I ran to the garage, put the painting in the darkest corner, and locked the garage door. I hoped that would be enough to keep it away. But the next morning, my heart dropped. I walked into my room, and there it was. The cursed painting was hanging back on my wall, right above my desk as if it had never left. How did it get there? The garage was still locked. I was so terrified, I started crying. This time, I told my dad everything again, explaining all the details from the rustling leaves to the whispering voice and how it came back from the garage. He still looked like he didn't quite believe in cursed paintings, but he saw how truly scared I was. He finally agreed that we needed to get rid of it for good. That afternoon, Dad and I drove the painting to a dump many miles away from our town. He threw it onto a huge pile of trash, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me as we drove away. I really truly thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. That night, as I lay in bed, trying to feel safe, I heard it again. The faint, familiar rustling of leaves. My stomach twisted with fear. My hands trembled as I turned on my light. The painting wasn't there, thank goodness. But on my desk, where the painting used to hang, there was a piece of paper. It was a new sketch, drawn in pencil, of the exact same creepy forest, with the tall trees and the foggy path. It looked like the painting itself was trying to draw its way back into my room. I gasped, grabbed the drawing, tore it into tiny pieces, and threw them deep into the trash can outside. Since that night, I haven't seen the actual painting or any more drawings. But sometimes, when my room is very quiet, I still hear faint whispers, like the rustling of leaves or a soft voice just out of hearing. It's like a little piece of the painting, or whatever was in it, is still here with me. I don't go to yard sales anymore. I learned that some things you find, things that seem like treasures, can bring you a lot of trouble. The kind of trouble you can't ever completely get rid of. And I'm never going to take that chance again. Some stories are better left undiscovered. If you enjoyed these stories, please do subscribe the channel and share it with the friend who loves horror.